Oh my gosh.
Hello. Good morning. I did it the right way this morning.
Oh, that's awesome. We're
Yeah.
still learning.
Yes. We're on the sides that we're most comfortable on this morning, right from the start.
That's right. That's right. We're not like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, well, and I was like, we didn't decide who's gonna start.
So you go right ahead. You got all the blame, so you go ahead and take over.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at Splintered Grace Podcast. My name is Bonnie Violet. I am a trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, and digital chaplain. And this is my lovely co-host.
Hi, everybody. Whew, I'm glad I don't have a long title like that. My name is Tina Frank. I'm a mature Christian conservative woman who follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. And I am so excited to be here today.
Awesome. See, that wasn't so bad.
It wasn't so bad. I guess I'm kind of getting longer in my title, huh? Like, thank goodness it's not a
Yeah.
competition.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I guess I'm just complicate. I don't know.
You're
I
not
don't know.
complicated. I think it's
Yeah. Yeah, I could just say I'm Bonnie Violet, but I think a lot of our, in particular, our conversation and kind of how this podcast is centered is a little bit around like the things that could potentially separate us or have separated us in the past, or
mhm.
for our listeners or people who watch us to they may have folks in their family that identifies with one of us or not, and maybe they're unable to have be in relationship with one another in a way that they want. So I think that's why I just feel like I want to put all that stuff out there just in case,
Yeah, I
somebody
get
can
it.
be like, well, I don't know, I'm not white, or I'm not femme, or I'm not like whatever, but I am trans, or I am, I don't know what, a drag artist, or I don't know,
It's all
maybe
good.
one day it'll just be like, hey, what's up?
It's so funny. It's so funny. I just like, okay, I have a hard time remembering the little bit that I say. So when you talk, I'm like,
Mm,
oh my gosh, I'm just blown away. Just
yeah.
rolls right off. No
Well,
problem.
it's like I say it all the time, so it's like, it just it does kind of get to where it rolls out of my mouth now.
Funny.
Um, and for folks who are with us, always feel free to comment if you're watching us live, or if you're watching us or listening to us afterwards. We'd always love to get comments or messages or that thing as well. Today we're gonna get political.
Oh,
Political.
I
I keep I hear like
know.
Olivia Newton-John's physical, but
Yeah,
political maybe.
yeah. So
And
funny.
and I think like political just in the sense of like I think we're gonna talk about drag and transness in general, because we both live in states. There are actually 20 states right now
Mm,
who have bills around transness, and many of those same states also have bills around drag. And some of those, I think some of the bills, even if they don't have, say they have a drag bill, I think also potentially impacts trans people,
mhm.
because a lot of the language around that is just dressing in the opposite sex gender. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like just me like this right now. Somebody could say that I'm in drag, which I'm not. I'm just like, I don't know, it's Thursday morning, right?
Yeah.
um,
Right, yeah.
and so, but somebody could say like I'm a drag queen, and because I'm like at the coffee shop, and I don't know, there's like, families and people and just like its general public, that potentially that could be a problem in some parts of the country. And then some are a lot more, like a little bit more specific, and so there's a lot of range, as far as like what some of these bills look like. There's a little bit of like cut and paste, but
Yeah.
each state has kind of adapted it slightly as far as maybe where they attach it to to their their laws and stuff, or and but it's all kind of like one in the same. I feel like I've talked a lot. Do you want to say
No, it's all
something?
good. I just let you get your thoughts out there. So yeah, I have to be honest. I stopped tracking some of this stuff because things have gotten so crazy, in my opinion, in the political arena with not just this topic, but with a lot of things.
Mhm.
We're attacking our leaders, and being disrespectful and rude and trying to outshout one another, and I just am really uncomfortable with that. So until you brought it up to me, I hadn't really been paying attention.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you brought it up so that I could pay attention, and a good lesson to learn that I should always pay attention no matter what's happening. But sometimes it's just hard to hear the reason
Mhm.
with all the shouting. And I just
Yeah.
really don't like all the shouting. I love that you and I, although we may or may not agree every time, we can have a conversation about it, because at the end of the day, I think that's what we all need to be doing, is having a conversation. Some of these specific topics that you shared, I don't think we have any business regulating with government.
Mm.
So I don't want someone telling me that I can't wear this pink shirt or a blue shirt or a purple shirt or a green shirt or whatever shirt. I
Right.
don't think we should be telling people what to wear. So I just on the baseline, I don't think that's appropriate at all. I also think, well, that's kind of stupid. How are we going to regulate that? We can't
Right.
even keep people from texting while they're driving. That we can't regulate. So why are we wasting time, tax dollars, trying to be the boss of people who don't need us to be the boss of them?
Mm.
That's just my initial thought. I'm like, why are we even messing with this?
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I definitely I agree with that. And a lot of the folks, I think there are a lot of folks who say what you say, but then for whatever reason, when it comes to trans people, that kind of just goes out the window. And so I think it just touches something in people that they don't understand, and
Mhm.
because they don't understand, I think oftentimes when I don't understand things, I have fear, or I I I don't want to say like I make things up, but like I go on maybe what somebody else said or what I heard versus, you know what I mean? Like I can be easily influenced or um persuaded, I guess, or maybe even that fear reinforced, if you will. And so, I mean, for me, it's like, I don't get to like, because I feel, I understand, like, because I too have a hard time really watching anything political, because a lot of
Yeah.
what we end up seeing is like the far right and the far left
Right.
um, playing this ugly game that nobody likes, that's,
Yes.
I don't even, that I think is so far from the reality of like who we are more like wholly as a country. I think there
Right.
is a lot more diversity in thought and belief. And even when we take the Democratic or Republican label, because those are really the only two we get to choose from, how
Mhm.
we each um, wear that label, if you will, and what that means to us is different for all of us. Though
Right.
oftentimes it's just like, oh, if you're Democrat, you're far left. If you're Republican, you're far right, and you're all crazy. I mean, that's, and I'm just saying that fairly like
No,
I
I get it. Yeah,
does
I
it
get it.
it creates an anxiety in me, because I do try to like listen to, because I'll listen to people like different conversations online with people who are different groups of people. Like I've been watching a little bit of like women's women sitting around talking about feminism, who are
Mhm.
conservative and liberal, and or masculinity with men, or Latinas, talking about conservative liberalism in the US, or Asians or Blacks. And it's been really interesting. I was really impressed with watching young people,
Mhm.
like really young people. Like to me, they seem like they were like, probably like in high school or something. I'm sure they were college age, but to me, I was like, oh my gosh, you're like, like to me, I saw myself at like 12 or
Yeah.
13, and I was like, I didn't, and they just, but they were also a lot more respectful to one another.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about agreeing with one another, because they were very much like, I don't agree with that, this is why, or and they would just listen to each other. And I thought that was like really great. And and so like I often want to just turn that stuff off. Like I don't like it, just it puts like an anxiety in me that it just does not feel nice.
I agree. That's why I stopped. It's like, oh my gosh, this
Mhm.
gets me so anxious. It steals my whole day from me. I have no joy. I have no peace. I keep hearing this craziness in my head. So I just had to stop. And
Yeah.
I need to really just find a happy medium. I sometimes will listen to news outside the US, just because I
Yeah.
feel like an outside perspective can kind of give me a better idea of what's happening, or at
Yeah.
least how we're viewed. So I do that, but I was not paying attention as these
Yeah.
came up for, and this looks like based on my research that they came up at the end of last year, and now they're getting momentum to um, be voted on this year.
Yeah.
Well, I learned a lot, so I'm grateful that to have that knowledge and understanding so that I can make a decision. But again, I don't think that these are things that we should even be. I
Yeah.
shouldn't be making a decision about what someone else is wearing. I have a hard enough time picking out my own clothes. I don't need to be
Mhm.
telling people how to present themselves. I don't need to be doing that.
Yeah.
So on that alone, my challenge I think is going to be is, and I think we kind of touched here, is they always add stuff. So as
Mm.
important at this issue is, or silly as it is, or not silly as it is, or whatever it is, all the things that they're going to all attach to it in the on the guise of agreement,
Mhm.
compromise. That's more my concern.
Yeah.
Why is this being brought up? Because it's ridiculous, first of all. And then what all are y'all trying to attach to it as we, because I this is just my opinion, so don't everyone hate me. But I feel like they try to stir things up to distract us on one thing
Yeah.
so they can cram all this other stuff on the back end that nobody even sees because they're so blinded by what color my shirt is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that to me is a bigger flag. So seeing this, I did not up till today because I did not take the time to read all the little details. I intend to read all the little details before I go to my polling office
Mhm.
and cast a vote if I get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, yeah. And there's kind of different stories throughout as far as like the likelihood of what's going to happen with some of these bills.
Mhm.
In some places, like even like Arizona, in particular, there's a lot of activity around the drag bills in Arizona, but
Mhm.
but you also have a governor that says like I'm going to veto anything that comes to me that's, like
Yeah.
regardless of what you all are doing, I'm going to veto it. um, so there's a little bit of like so there's like a little bit of like I guess people might be able to take a little bit of a breath there, I guess,
Mhm.
maybe, I don't know. But it's still like the thing that gets me is just the things that they're saying about us is just not even true.
Well,
Like, there's like, and being trans or doing drag doesn't come with like people can do not great things regardless of being trans or in drag. But for the most part, most of us are like good people, and the things that they're saying about us just aren't true, you know. Um, and I think that's the challenge. I think especially like when it comes to a lot of times with transness in particular, they're talking about us like mutilating our bodies and doing all this harm that just isn't happening, especially when they're talking about kids, because this stuff, it's not happening. They're not doing surgeries on people under the age of 18. They're very rare occasions. They sometimes will do a top surgery, um, uh, which is like a breast removal for somebody who is like 16 to 18 years old, but that is very rare. And it usually happens with a doctor and parent consent, and after having lots of like mental health care and physical health care and like a lot of things to really secure. Because for me to get on hormones too, like, I mean, we have to go through a lot of process to even get treatment as adults, as kids, whatever. So it's not like people are just transitioning us. It's not like we just woke up on Monday and we're like, hey, like I'm trans. And then I go in on Tuesday and I get my medication. And on Wednesday, I get a breast reduction or whatever, and you know what I mean? Like it's a years and years and years process. And what puberty does to our body cannot be undone. And so a lot of the times it is about just slowing it down, slowing the process down so that we can make the decision as an 18-year-old, on our own, and that's really a lot of what the puberty blockers are about, is just helping people, and not just trans people take these. There are some kids that start puberty really young. They'll start puberty at like 6 or 7, and there's a reason for that. I'm not sure what it is because I'm not a doctor, but they take the same hormones they would to delay the process so that they can have a more timely puberty experience as everyone else does, and so it's not like because they often say that these medications are harmful to us and cause all these problems, and for the most part they aren't. Any sort of medication can cause problems, of course, like that's just
There's
that
always side effects.
happens. Exactly. So and it's like just be honest, and then like I could be totally fine if you're like making a decision, even knowing, but it's just I don't understand why they have to say such salacious things. Just say I don't think kids should be on hormones, instead of saying like these hormones cause brain swelling and everyone who like so many people want to detransition, and some people do change their mind. Some people do, like it's rare, but it does happen that somebody might be like, no, I'm not trans, or I don't want to transition. And oftentimes sometimes it's just more about the socialization. It's not easy to be a trans person
Yeah, I
in the
can't
world,
imagine.
you know.
You just described to me the response that you said that you do sometimes when you don't have all the information. You
Mhm.
you kind of take other people's word for it. You try to defend it as part of because you're scared. And I think that's you just described. People are doing that same thing. They can't just share their opinion and understand that and trust that it'll move forward according
Do
to
you
that.
know do you know what the fear is?
Probably the same fear that you have. Our
As
core,
in,
well, our values are being um, pursued, you know?
mm,
And,
but
there's
what
a reason to
what it
be go ahead.
like I mean, I guess what does I guess my transition have to do with them? I
It really doesn't. But when they're trying to make a point as to why they don't think you should do it, then they feel like they have to go on and explain themselves. Because a lot of times when we're asked a question and we give our answer, it's not good enough. Why do you feel that way? Why is it you feel that way? Explain that to me. How does that make sense to you? And so, in an effort to try to explain it, sometimes they'll in because now they're like, oh, now I'm defending myself. They just went through, you've asked my opinion, to, oh, now
mhm,
I need to defend myself. And so that's when things kind of get off kilter, I think.
yeah. Well, and I think there's something to be said to that too, because kind of like you said, it's like a lot of these people, when they're asked questions about the bills or about this, that, or other, they really can't answer a lot of the questions. It's like, well, I don't really know. Like I read this thing, like some of people have said, I read this thing on the internet, you know, like I've heard senators or representatives say that in other states in some of these conversations. And so, I mean, I think that's the thing that's tough too. It's like, do the research. If you do the research and you still feel that way, then fine. But just don't like, I just don't understand all the lies, all the and then I find it really interesting too how because in Idaho we just had a hearing on a trans bill that would make it would be 10 years and a felony for anybody who would assist anyone under the age of 18 in transition in any form or fashion, or any gender affirming care. So that would be a doctor, even if a doctor sent a referral to somewhere else,
Mhm.
that doctor could get 10 years in a felony and lose their license. Parents then can also as well, or guardians of that child. And then even if you were to leave the state and get medical care and then come back into the state, then the state would also potentially seek you out and, arrest you. So, and they're putting it under like genital mutilation, like they're putting it under a law that was around a cultural thing where they would I wish I could speak to it properly, but they would remove the pleasure part on the vagina, or in the um, female reproductive system, so that a woman can't experience pleasure. It's like a
Mhm.
cultural thing or whatever, and so they outlawed that, and so they want to put this in that same vein of medical. I don't know, they just want to put it under the same law, and they're very, very different things. And one, it's not even, again, it's not even, there's not even any bottom surgeries that are happening on anyone under the age of 18, and it's very rare where they'll sometimes do a chest. But usually at that point, the person who is going through that is dealing with like a lot of suicidal ideation, potentially self-harm. There's a lot of things going on, so that like the removal of breasts, even if it was something you regretted at some point in time, it's still better than, like, unaliving yourself or something. And that's just the reality of a lot of young people. So it is really just about like, how can we help keep kids alive, even if it's till they're adults, so they can make some of these decisions, because none of the decisions are really irreversible. But once puberty does things to your body, that can't be undone. Like, I'm always going to have, like, especially me transitioning later in life, it's like I'm always just going to look, everyone's always just going to call me a dude first. Like, I mean, I got out of a car the other day. I'm like, I have my nails, my hair, I'm a skirt, I have breasts, like, I'm doing all the things I can to try to be read as a girl. And my name is Bonnie Violet in the Uber. You know what I mean? Like, everything is screaming that I am at least wanting to be seen as a femme person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Uber driver was like, "Have a good day, sir." So it's just like, and that's going to happen. And part of that happens is because there's something about me, whether it's my voice, whether it's my face structure, whether it's my chest, whether it's my whatever, there I'm still being read as a man. Which, that if I could have started younger, maybe that wouldn't be the case, if that was even my goal. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
for some trans people that is, and sometimes I just want to pass so that I feel like I'm in less fear of harm. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to be seen as a woman, but I feel like if I'm read as a woman, I'm safer than if I'm read as a trans person.
Yeah. I get it. For me, I'm processing. Okay, so are we second guessing creation? And is there, we were all created.
Mhm.
I wasn't created by science. I believe that I was created in an image, and in the image of God specifically. So what do I do with that? Am I saying that my opinion or my emotion or my, I don't know what it would even call it. And you would probably speak to that better than I could. Desire to be something different. Is
Mhm.
that a challenge against why the creation, why I was created, and the purpose I was created for? Do I not trust that my creation? And so I was created this way, with all the parts, the physical parts, the mental parts, the internal parts, all the parts. So once I start altering that based on my emotions or what I think the world might expect of me, because I'm saying I'm this or that, or I like this or that, or I'm doing this or that, I just wonder, and I don't know that there's
Yeah.
even an answer to the question, but for me, it's like, okay, are we challenging our creation? Where did you? I mean, I know where I came from. I think I know what where you came from, but are we challenging where we came from? Why was I created as a female? Why was I created as a male? What's the reason behind that? Is there a
Well,
bigger reason than I can even fathom? And do I dare challenge it? And if I do challenge it, what kind of a consequence is that? What kind of a circumstance is that? How do I get the world to look at me differently? Is the world even supposed to look at me differently? If
yeah,
I
but
see
God
something,
doesn't,
the world's going to see me differently. All these things are just like running through my
right.
mind.
But God doesn't call you man or woman. God calls you by your name.
No,
Like,
he says they created male and female
well, the Bible
in his
says that,
image. That's right. That's what God wrote,
but
was the
God didn't
Bible.
say it. But
Well, I don't. What reference do you have of what God
yeah,
said then?
but I mean, if you were to even go back, there's like anyway, like we know that like, and I believe and I know that
Mhm.
God continues to create me. God didn't just create me and put me in my mama's belly and was done. God is still creating me physically, emotionally, spiritually. Like, it wasn't just a one and done. So like, my actually seeking and connection with God, which we've talked about a lot, is what's caused me to transition. I believe that God created me to be trans and created me to exist in the body and in the form that I am in this point in time, to be part of changing the world, and to be a part of being a voice and a message, and a you know uh the embodiment of, I think, from your understanding or Christian understanding of Jesus. I don't feel like that my existence and how I see myself and how I'm living is, even though I might not fully say I'm a Christian, I don't believe that I'm anti-Jesus.
Oh, I
And
don't
I
believe
don't,
that you're
I,
anti-Jesus either.
I know you don't, I know you don't either. And so it's like, so I can understand that people are concerned about that, but they don't get concerned about that when they have surgery on their heart, or they dye their hair, or they wear glasses, or they do things to help them live better in life as a human. Like we alter our bodies, and we do it for medical reasons. We do it because we just think it looks good. We do it for a lot of different reasons. And I don't think that God is against that, especially if it allows us to be better in the world and allows us to be kinder and more loving and more, you know what I mean? Like actually be able to live our lives. And I mean,
So we talked
go ahead.
last week about being in the world and not of the world.
Hmm.
So do we define that differently than you and I? I
No,
kind
I
of
don't
felt
think
like we
so.
were on the same page because what you're
We
describing
are.
to me is someone who wants to be a part and live in this world and be a part of this world and not just be a guest in this
No,
world.
but we are in the world, not of the world. So we
Right.
still are, like, for me, I still like feel like I'm in the world to be with everyone else. And me
But
in
what makes us
created,
different then?
what do you mean?
Well, we're supposed to be set apart, right? We're,
You and
we're,
I?
no, well, people, we're supposed to be set apart as unique and different. But if we look like everybody else, how does that equate? Some of the
Exactly.
some of the points that you're making, I totally agree with. I totally agree with.
Yeah.
But I just making another point that this is such a gray area that we can talk and talk and talk. And at the
Mm,
end of the day, our core value and belief system is different. And that's not necessarily bad,
no.
but it's definitely an opportunity for us to expand the way we think, how we believe, and experience intimacy with one another
Hmm.
so that we can get to know each other.
Well, and I mean,
Go
I
ahead.
think that's the thing though. It's like, and that's the whole thing, is like you and I can have a different understanding and a different agreement on things, but you're not going to go out of your way to make my life miserable
Oh,
because
absolutely not.
because I see it different than you. Like you're
Right.
not even going to push your thoughts. You might share what you think, you might share uh how you feel about it, and that wouldn't be for you, but you're not going out of your way to make my life even more difficult
Right.
because maybe you see it differently than I do. And I think that's the difference. That's what I that's the difference between I guess what's happening politically on TV
Yeah.
um that in comparison to what like real life stuff. And I think, it's, I don't know, like I appreciate that, and also it's been difficult for us at times too, because
It has.
it's such a personal, it's a personal thing. It's like it's when somebody tells me that like I like wants to talk about my transness, like my transness is wrong, I feel like they're saying like you're doing you wrong. Like you're wrong. You're wrong in the sense of like, and that just doesn't feel right. We do have a comment, so I do want to acknowledge that. Jonathan James Levine says, "This is a civil and riveting conversation. Thank you, Bonnie and Tyler." Tina. Thanks so much, Jonathan, for joining us and for saying that. We have been um, we've we wanted to have this conversation. I wanted to, and Tina was also um, more than willing. It did not take convincing for us to have this conversation. However, we have, I think, in the past been a lot less resistant to talk about things that are political. And even at that, I don't think that it's, like it's political because politicians have made it political. Being trans or drag really shouldn't be a political thing. I don't think, but because people have made our existence political, then it becomes politics, and then it kind of becomes kind of messy or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
I'd like to
then
see more and more people having a conversation like you and I are. I would be willing to sit down and listen to a reasonable conversation. And, we need to just let people understand, okay, why do I believe the way I do? Why do
mhm,
you believe the way you do? What is our life experience in that foundation? Not out of fear, grasping at whatever we can and saying, well, you're ugly. That's not what
right,
we need to do. We need to have a conversation, put the things on the table, and trust. that people have the ability to make their own choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate that we've come to a point where we can do that, and that we love each other, because
Yeah.
this is what it's supposed to look like. We can love each other and not walk, talk, think, and do all the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And we can support one another and not walk, talk, do, and think about all the same things.
Yeah.
I would hope that you pray for me every day, because I pray for you every day, because I
I
love
pray as much as I pray, if I'm being honest. I just don't always pray
you. No,
every day.
I get it, but I think
Yeah.
that's the role we have for one another. We need to live a life set apart. Now, that phrase I know means a lot of things to a lot of people, but set
Mm-hmm.
apart means that we're unique individuals, created, I believe, by God to live a unique life, and we should not be conformed to the culture and the world that we have. And depending on your core values, depending on where you believe and what you believe, you're going to take on certain characteristics of that, but you need to continue to keep your individuality. Now, I
Right.
think individuality comes from the inside. It eventually reflects on the outside. So for me, the outside isn't as much of a big deal as the inside. And I feel like
If
some
the
people are making the outside such a big deal
mm,
that they're stealing from the inside. And I
yeah,
don't think that's right either.
right. Well, and for me, it's interesting because my femininity and my like the way that I exist now is something that I feel is has been deep inside of me that I've had to, like, so for me, it is allowing me to express the spirit within me. It's
Mhm,
actually allowing me to be in my body and have a relationship with my body and to honor my body, as well. Like, so if anything, it's caused me to have a better relationship with all of it on a spiritual level, physical level, emotional level. Bonnie, there's another Bonnie. Thanks for joining us, Bonnie. Bonnie said it's a good conversation, and then also had a question. And Bonnie says, why do you think the trans community has so much suicide? Um, and it's it's really hard to exist as a trans person. I'm almost 44 years old, and I can barely leave my house. I can, and I, like, because I'm afraid of violence. When I was younger, I feared God. I thought I was wrong by God, like I was doing something wrong to God, or, like I was some way anti God, or anti, you know what I mean? Like I was living against what God had for me, which was a lie. And so it's like all I do is kind of get closer to God. And so like I'm good with God. God doesn't cause me to not want to be alive. God actually helps me feel like I want to be here, even though it feels as if there are some people, just some people who want to hurt me or hurt people like me and have hurt people like me. And so I think it's just hard to have hope for some people. And depending upon where they're at, I have my Aunt Tina, and uh, like I have you, I don't have regular connections with most of the rest of my family. Um, like, so I don't, but it's really hard still, you know, it's really hard for me um, as an adult, as somebody who's lived their life, in it so many ways. And I've had like I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. I've been sexually assaulted. I've been, like I have a history and I would say that this last year transitioning has been the hardest day of like the hardest year of my life. So there's something more to it. And so I don't know why each individual person does. And if you look at it, suicide in general is and unaliving yourself is a pretty um, it happens a lot more than it needs to, you know. And I think that happens for a lot of different reasons. But I think ultimately people are. I mean, I think there's mental health stuff. I don't understand. I did try to unalive myself when I was 10. Um, but like I haven't had that experience since then, except for when I first got sober, that I thought about like I just don't think I can live anymore, you
mm,
know. Um, so I don't know. I don't know exactly why, but I can say that it's really hard to be in the world as a trans person. Roxanne, your sister, my aunt, says, I believe God created your mom to have you, or you wouldn't exist. And I love you, and I would be empty without you. If you weren't here, you would change the future. That touches me, Roxanne. So thank you for saying that. And I believe that I was, God created my mom, and I'm in my family for a reason, and all that sort of stuff. Like I do not question, expect, like I said, like the godness, the spiritual aspect of my life. I have no hesitation being in the world with people is where it's a little bit more difficult, even though I believe that that's where God wants me to be, and God created me to be this way in the world. And so, and Roxanne, I just, that means a lot to me, and a lot of my distance with the family is because I haven't been able to have the conversation with many people directly, because I'm afraid, um, and I haven't heard much from other people either. You know what I mean? And so it's a mixed bag. I know that as much of it is my own, I just, sometimes it feels less scary to not know, like the fact that maybe you have a problem feels a little bit better than knowing that you're not okay with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Um,
get that. I get that. I get that. I'm sorry. I didn't mean I
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's just the
oh,
reality of
praise
it.
praise God. Well, I'm grateful that Roxanne chimed in because I know she loves you. Her and I have had that conversation more than once. So
Yeah, but
anyway,
I haven't, but I haven't allowed myself to feel that, and I really want my family in my life, but I can't seem to, I just can't seem to bring myself to do it.
well, maybe we'll just be praying that maybe in this new year, this new season of your life, that maybe some of that stuff will reconcile. Well, I've been praying for restoration over our family as a whole for a long time. Because it's not just, and this is just one place of restoration. We're a normal family. We have stuff.
Yeah.
We all have stuff. So anyway, so I'm grateful. Anyway, sorry, we didn't mean to make you cry,
Oh, no, it's okay.
but I'm
I'm
grateful
keeping
that
it I'm keeping it back.
you got it. You got it. Anyway,
Yeah.
good conversation. Thanks, sis, for piping in. We love
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thanks for folks for joining us. And if you have any questions or comments, please do send them our way. And I think I think exactly like that interaction is exactly like, I mean, it's taken us years to get to this place,
Yeah.
and it's
And
like,
it's
and
been work. We've worked at
yeah,
it. We've decided in those moments that we were so upset with one another. Nope, I am not stepping away. I'm going to step in.
yeah. And that's been before we started reconciling our relationship, and it's been within our relationship, you
Yeah.
know. So, and it's still just, and so it's like, how does, and I think that's what it takes is all of us have a Tina or a Bonnie Violet in our life in one form or another. And I think if we're just able to work toward that, and then, I think because I'm in relationship with you in the way that I am, I'm able to be in relationship with others, and I think that, that's like what we can do. I don't know that I can go, address any of the things that are happening in politics, or, have any big influence on that. But um, I know for us, it's just being able to like show up to each other's humanity, see each
Yeah.
other's humanity. Not, Luke talks about this idea that, we don't want, it's not an issue about understanding us. It's really an issue about compassion, you know, like, and really, like, you don't need to understand me
No,
to have compassion for me.
I heard a good quote as you say that. It just came up in my spirit. And it said, how dare I think that I could have a negative thought about any of God's creation?
Mm,
And that speaks to me as a Christian, a woman of faith who says that I love the Lord. And if I believe all the things that I've shared that I believe about being created, who am I to have an opinion about what God created? And so I try really hard not to have a negative opinion about what God created in any
Mhm.
capacity. It keeps me humble, it keeps me praying, and it keeps me in tune with what's real and what's my opinion. Because
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget about what's real or what's true, and we let our opinions form us into people we can't even recognize, into people that can't show compassion, into people who can't be lovely, who can't express love or even receive love. And
Mhm.
I think we need to be real cautious of that. So
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing I do want to say is we are running out of time, and I'm already
sorry.
late. I'm already late for work, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
okay. But I mean, we're still good on our time. We have 4 minutes of
Okay.
what we plan to. But I do think that it's important to say it's like, okay, we can have this conversation, and yet there's still these things happening politically. And I think there is an element of that we do have to find a way to combat that, I think, and maybe that is going and voting. I know for me, like I'm putting together testimonies with lawyers and stuff for the different bills that are happening in Idaho, and I'm coordinating a Idaho Drag is Divine conversation so that people can
Mhm.
meet drag queens and drag kings and other drag artists and really come to see us as more than just like however way they see us, or let us tell you who we are, rather than you getting who we are from everyone else. We do have a few comments that are coming up. I haven't read through them, but I'm just going to read them out loud so you'll hear them as I read them. Um, Amber Rutan says, "I believe as Christ followers, we called to love others as Jesus loved us, no exceptions. I'm a fellow addict in recovery. Hello, and know too well the trauma and abuse. I love Splintered Grace and have watched this conversation, and I love you both for representing God and having this be an example for others. Thank you, Bonnie and Tina. Thank you so much for joining us, Amber,
Thanks,
and
Amber.
taking the time to say that. And it's great to see another person in recovery. It's great to know that we're not alone in all of that. And then Tina, do you want to read this one?
Yeah.
Again, I haven't read it, but
Vicki Griffin Berglund. Hi, Vicki. We see a host of destructive bills that we work to ensure never gain traction. Now that the legislature and the executive branch are split ideologically, tensions are high and efforts are emboldened. The list of bills some lawmakers hope to get to Governor Hobbs' desk paints a stark picture of where they want to take Arizona. With the very slim majority of pro family lawmakers in both chambers, Governor Hobbs will likely not have an opportunity to put her signature on these bills. But there are, and I don't know if there's more there.
I feel like there might be more, but it hasn't come across.
Okay, so
Um,
I apologize if I can't finish your post, Vicky, but I appreciate you chiming in, and I encourage you guys to go out and read Vicky's post because I'm sure it's got a lot of meat in there for us to consider.
yes, and it might just be delayed. So if you're listening, you can watch. The link to the YouTube video is in there, so you can also check out what was written. If it comes up during the credits, I will put it up on the screen. And it's via Facebook if folks want to look on Facebook as
Yeah,
far as the comments
yeah,
go. Um, so yeah, thank you so much. I loved the engagement today. I think that just really shows that I think one that we're talking about something that matters. And I know for me, it means a lot being able to have this
mhm,
conversation with you today. Um, Something that we wouldn't have been, I don't think I would have been able to have with you even just a few months ago. So I'm really
yeah,
grateful
yeah,
that we're pushing ourselves to have these conversations. And right now it just seems like it has to, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
Vicky says, Facebook is banning a lot of my posts. Ah,
Okay, well, hopefully they
okay.
don't ban this one. Well, real quick before we sign off, because I know we're running out of time, I encourage you guys to take a look at these bills. I'm not going to tell you how to vote because I want you to vote your conscience. I want you to vote your core values, but I want you to understand what these bills mean. I want you to ask yourself the hard questions about these bills, like how are these going to be handled? How are they going to be enforced? What is that going to look like? And I just want you to take the time. Don't get drowned out by all the screaming. Take the time, look at it yourself, and make your own opinion about it to move forward. And always, always, always be loving and kind to anyone that you see.
Awesome. That's a great way for us to go out. Join us next week, same time, same place. We're not sure what our topic is yet, but keep an eye out on our socials and we'll tell you, or better yet, tell us what you would like for us to talk about. Leave it in the comments or direct message us if you know us. And maybe we could bring up your topic next week or in a future episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Take care, be well, and have a great day.
Hi, everybody.
Bye-bye. Splintered Grace Podcast is brought to you by a queer chaplain. Follow us on all of our social medias, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at a queer chaplain. Listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Feel free to tip us at Venmo, Bonnie Violet, and support monthly on Patreon. The song is original by Steven Sandnoff, The Chasm Between Us. Rest in peace, Steven.